Luke, a man who gave up his dreams to support his sister after losing their parents, quietly carrying the weight of loneliness. Rachel, a woman battling life's struggles with anger, hiding her vulnerability beneath a strong facade. And one snowy day just before New Year's, their paths crossed in the most unexpected way. What started as a simple coffee order turned into a moment of tension, fueled by outbursts and regret, but ultimately transformed into an unforgettable connection. A cup of coffee, a snowflake, and two lonely souls brought together. Amid the shadows of the past and the fears they carried, these two would find themselves in the midst of a modern fairy tale. A love story that began on a snowy night before New Year's. Hi everyone and welcome to Emotion Line. Luke was a 26-year-old ordinary guy. He worked as a barista at a chain coffee shop on one of New York's bustling streets, making a living this way. But this wasn't his real career path. Just 3 years ago, Luke had been a promising engineering student, full of dreams and hope for the future. That is, until his life was turned upside down overnight. When his parents tragically died in a sudden car accident, Luke's entire world took a sharp turn. He dropped out of school, moved to New York, and used the last of his family's savings to rent a small apartment. From then on, he worked as a barista to support his younger sister, Emma. Emma was studying at a prestigious law school, and Luke was willing to sacrifice everything for her future. On the outside, it seemed like Luke had adapted to his new life. But deep down, a growing sense of loneliness and loss was slowly turning him into a more withdrawn version of himself. He picked up as many extra shifts as he could, constantly keeping himself busy to avoid being alone with his thoughts. As the holiday season approached, the city's twinkling lights and decorated Christmas trees weren't a source of joy for Luke. Instead, they brought back memories of past Christmases spent with his family, filling him with sorrow. He swallowed his tears and kept to himself. Hardly anyone knew him, just the customers at the coffee shop and a handful of co-workers. But Luke never opened up to anyone. Emma, on the other hand, was different. She was vibrant, optimistic, and excited for the future. To keep from overwhelming her with his struggles, Luke maintained a somewhat distant relationship. He supported her every chance he got but never let her see his pain. This Christmas, he had encouraged her to go to her university's holiday party with friends. With just a few days left until New Year's, Luke prepared a cinnamon latte in a festive holiday-themed coffee cup and wrote the last customer's name on it. As the customer paid and walked away, Luke muttered to himself, "Stupid holidays." Just then, a woman rushed into the coffee shop. She was strikingly beautiful, long brown hair cascading over her shoulders, her brown eyes carrying a deep, sorrowful intensity. She wore a black coat and a red scarf. Striding quickly up to the counter, she said sharply, "Just a black coffee." Luke, following the usual corporate coffee shop procedures, started asking the standard questions. "Would you like any extra syrup? A larger size maybe?" He listed off, but the woman impatiently replied, "No," to each question. Finally, she raised her voice and snapped, "I just want a black coffee. It can be drip coffee or an Americano, I don't care." The second the words left her mouth, she regretted them. Rachel felt a wave of shame for losing control. Lately, things had been going so wrong in her life that her bottled-up frustration kept spilling out in small, unguarded moments like this. Rachel worked in a high-ranking position at a major company, but the relentless ego battles and office politics among her colleagues had made her job unbearable. She faced constant harassment and sabotage, and no matter how much she tried to keep her distance, the chaos had pulled her in. That day, something had finally broken her. A moment of desperation had led her to utter a lie she wasn't proud of, a desperate response to a baseless accusation. Drowning in these thoughts, Rachel hardly noticed as Luke handed her the coffee. Taking it, she was overwhelmed with embarrassment. But before she could leave, Luke, without realizing it, muttered aloud what was on his mind. "Here's your stupid holiday coffee. Enjoy." The words hung in the air. As soon as Luke realized what he'd said, he froze. Rachel's eyes widened, her lips trembled, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. Luke panicked when he saw her tears but didn't know what to say. Rachel, unable to contain her emotions, slammed the coffee back onto the counter and stormed toward the door. She pushed it open and stepped outside, leaving Luke standing there, his mind blank. In that moment, both of them were consumed by their own anger and loneliness. Luke froze for a few seconds, overwhelmed by regret and the weight of Rachel's tears. Then, without thinking, he sprang into action. Leaving the other customers at the counter, he rushed outside after Rachel. He caught up to her, lightly grabbing her arm as the drizzle glistened on her black coat. If you've made it this far and are enjoying the story, Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more heartwarming tales like this one. I'm so sorry, Luke said, his voice filled with guilt. I was just stressed out, it wasn't about you. I really am sorry. The words tumbled out quickly, but Rachel, her eyes still teary, started to respond. I was rude to you too, but... Before her voice broke and all the emotion she'd been bottling up spilled out as tears. I'm not okay, Rachel said, her voice trembling. Please just leave me alone. It's not personal. I forgive you, it's fine. She turned to walk away, but Luke didn't let her go. Rachel, right? Your name's Rachel, he said, his tone gentle but firm. I'm Luke. Please don't leave like this. Even Luke was surprised at his own behavior. This wasn't like him at all. But the thought of making Rachel feel so awful weighed heavily on him. Rachel paused for a moment, averting her eyes. I'm sorry, she murmured before walking away again. Luke returned to the coffee shop, feeling defeated. He apologized to the waiting customers and resumed making their orders. As he continued preparing stupid holiday coffees, Rachel lingered in his thoughts. Just before closing, the door opened again. Luke looked up and saw Rachel standing there. She looked a little tired but somehow calmer. You came back, Luke said, surprised, breaking into a genuine smile. Rachel gave a shy smile and said, You owed me an apology, but I also wanted to properly give mine. Luke smiled back. Fair enough, but my apology comes with a coffee, he said playfully. You paid for it but you didn't take it. I like black coffee too, guess you can figure out what happened to yours. Rachel looked at him with a spark in her eyes. They both realized they'd been drawn to each other from the very beginning, but only now had the moment allowed them to notice. Luke snapped back to reality. Give me a second to close up and I'll make us some coffee. Want to go for a walk in the park? He asked. Rachel gave a soft nod, smiling faintly, walking side by side over a thin layer of snow. Rachel suddenly stopped and said with a laugh, Your stupid coffee was actually pretty good. Luke laughed sheepishly. I hate the holidays, he replied. Then he opened up a little about himself, losing his family, the sacrifices he'd made for his sister. For the first time he shared his story so openly with someone. Rachel was deeply moved by what he'd been through, while Luke felt as if a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. After a brief pause, Luke turned to her and asked, So, what about you? Why were you so upset earlier? Rachel told him about her struggles at work, the constant bullying and the gossip she endured. Today, I overheard them laughing behind my back. They called me antisocial and said no one would ever want to spend time with someone as miserable as me, she admitted, her voice fragile. Luke interrupted her immediately. Wow, your coworkers are even more idiotic than I thought, he said, his tone light but sincere. Rachel couldn't help but laugh. Suddenly an idea popped into Rachel's mind. Her eyes widened as she asked, What are you doing for New Year's? Luke hesitated. I don't have any plans, he admitted. Rachel looked a little nervous but asked, Would you help me with something? Luke raised an eyebrow. With what? Blushing slightly, Rachel confessed. Today, I told a stupid lie. I said I was living out some unbelievably romantic dream, just to shut them up. Luke burst into laughter. Seriously? He asked. Rachel nodded, grinning sheepishly. Yeah, I'd had enough. Would you come with me to my office's New Year's party? Luke hesitated for a moment. Rachel added, Please, her eyes sparkling with hope. If you come, I'll forgive you. Luke laughed. Didn't you already forgive me? Rachel looked down, embarrassed. Luke smiled warmly. If it'll make you happy, of course I'll go, he said. The next day, Rachel and Luke met up to plan their story for the party, where they'd pretend to be a couple. After a while, they headed to Luke's apartment to pick out outfits. For the first time in years, Luke found himself genuinely enjoying the moment. Rachel's energy was radiant, playful, easygoing, and full of life. Without realizing it, Luke was growing more and more captivated by her with every passing second. Rachel, meanwhile, was excited about the upcoming party, but as she spent more time with Luke, she felt like she'd known him forever. They laughed, cracked jokes, and debated over outfit choices together. Eventually, they settled on an outfit, and as they walked through the streets laughing, Luke escorted Rachel home. Yet deep down, he didn't want to say goodbye. They met up every day until the party. Without any pressure from the plan, they simply enjoyed their time together, drinking coffee, talking, and sharing little moments. But the connection between them went beyond their words and actions. Though neither of them had admitted it yet, the truth was undeniable. They had fallen for each other. When the day of the party arrived, Luke picked Rachel up from her place as planned. After what seemed like forever, Rachel finally appeared at the door in her coat. Luke tried to keep his cool, but when Rachel removed her coat at the party, all his composure melted away. She was glowing in a stunning dress that left him momentarily speechless. Rachel chuckled at his stunned expression. "You're doing a great job acting," she said, her voice tinged with nervousness. Luke stammered, "Haha yeah," before trailing off awkwardly. But her warm smile brought him back to his senses. They entered the party arm in arm. Rachel's co-workers were gathered at a table, and every single one of them turned to stare at Luke. Without hesitation, Luke confidently walked with Rachel to the table. "Hi, nice to finally meet you all," he said smoothly. Rachel added with a graceful smile, "Everyone, this is Luke, my boyfriend." One by one, her colleagues introduced themselves and shook Luke's hand, though their faces betrayed their shock. Throughout the night, they couldn't stop glancing at Luke and Rachel. For them, the idea of this antisocial woman having a boyfriend was both surprising and envy-inducing. As the evening progressed, the party became more lively. Finally, it was time for the highlight of the night, welcoming the new year, 2025. The countdown began. As the crowd chanted, 10, 9, 8. Luke turned Rachel to face him. She seemed to know what was coming, her eyes widening slightly as she gazed at him with a soft smile. When the clock struck midnight, Luke gently pulled Rachel closer and kissed her lightly on the lips. As the crowd erupted into cheers and applause to welcome the new year, it felt as if the world had stopped for the two of them. This was only the beginning of their fairy tale. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you in the next story.